From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, where I can literally look out my window and see the Manhattan starting to school in the calm waters of Biloxi Bay, which incidentally is a great sign that fishing is exploding in coastal Mississippi. There's no doubt about that. I want to welcome you to SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi. Because, as I say every week, we are the capital of the outdoors in America. Thank you for joining us on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi radio network or on SuperTalk TV at C Spire TV. But some of you are watching on YouTube and Facebook, or maybe you're listening on your favorite podcast. It's June the 12th, 2023. Can you believe this year is flying by as fast as it is? It's truly remarkable. I want to especially thank the foundation, the sponsor of SuperTalk Outdoors. The foundation is focused on important issues of protecting Mississippi's outdoors heritage. In the second half of the show, I'm actually going to remind you of one-of-a-kind raffle that's currently underway at the foundation. It gives you a chance to win some amazing prizes. By the way, the views on this show are mine, not those of the foundation. When it comes to outdoors issues or the outdoors in general, you can count on me to say what needs to be said when it comes to conservation and outdoor enjoyment in Mississippi, and I'm really, really honored to be here. We talk a lot about freedom in America. The Bill of Rights kind of details freedoms such as freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to keep and bear arms, and so on. But as an outdoorsman or outdoors woman, we know this. This is a quote from Charles Lindbergh. Real freedom lies in wildness, not civilization. Real freedom lies in wildness, not civilization. You know, Charles Lindbergh, most of you know him well, the American aviator. He was a military officer, and he flew from New York City to Paris in 1927. He knew wildness, that's for sure. But, you know, when I'm offshore, off the coast of Mississippi, or on the edge of an ag field hunting a hardwood bottom in the Mississippi Delta, I often pause and reflect, and I thank God I'm able to be in that moment. I take a deep breath. I know you do too in moments like that. It's in these moments of the wildness of Mississippi that we can literally find ourselves overwhelmed, our senses completely overwhelmed by the awesomeness of it all. You know, the human spirit covets the outdoors. You know this. It's not a luxury. It's a basic human need. That is for sure. And so, you know, at the end of the day, we have to be outside. We have to go outside. We have to enjoy the wildness of this state in order to refresh our souls. But unfortunately, sadly, actually, some people don't quite understand that. But you can help by taking someone who doesn't get it out to enjoy the outdoors and create an opportunity for them to take a deep breath and enjoy the wildness of Mississippi. Share your love of the outdoors. It will pay off, and we'll turn them over one at a time. We'll make them love the outdoors in Mississippi. Hey, listen, I talk a lot about safety on this show. I close every single show begging you to stay safe when you're in the outdoors. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. But we're just going to visit with Major Chris Clark, who is the law enforcement manager for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. But before we go any further, let me welcome Chris to the show. How you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. So where are you sitting right now?
Right here. I'm at the Central Region office right off 43.
Good. So listen, man, it's an exciting time of the year, but it's also an important time of the year. As I mentioned, as I close every show, I talk about safety, but there's so many people out on the water, so many people out enjoying the outdoors. We can't take safety for granted, can we?
No, sir, not at all. It's the perfect time of the year. Everybody's wanting to get out on the water and get out there and enjoy it. And it's a great thing. Get out with the families, get on the sandbars and just ski a little bit and have a little fun.
Hey, listen, where I'm located on Back Bay, I can watch boats coming from the Mississippi Sound into Back Bay and then on up to the bayous of Bayou or Schutica Bluff River or the Biloxi River. But, you know, they're going in all those different directions. But at one point yesterday, I looked out, and I bet there were 20 boats, maybe more, that were returning from a day at the islands or whatever they were doing. Some boats were kind of leisurely moving along. Some were jet skis going 60 plus miles an hour. Some were, fast speed boats, kind of weaving in and out. Man, the technology that people have access to in boats today are incredible. And if we don't pay attention, man, lots of bad things can happen. We'll come back to that in just a second. Let's take a step back for a second. You heard the way I started the show, Chris. There is an opportunity for us to go out and take a deep breath and enjoy the outdoors of Mississippi. Man, we're lucky to live in this state, aren't we?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I mean, any day you go out, you got something else you can do.
There is no doubt. So where did you learn your love of the outdoors?
Lord, I grew up in Winston County, a little bit below Starkville over there, and grew up with family and friends doing stuff in the outdoors, whether it's going fishing or going hunting. And just like most folks here, just enjoy it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So many of us got it from our fathers and our grandfathers, and that's a common theme. Some people didn't, and when they were introduced to it, as I pointed out at the beginning of the show, they get hooked, and they fall in love with it, and they start to enjoy it. One positive from the pandemic, and I know you saw this in your line of work, is that people felt safe in the outdoors. So people were being reintroduced to our state parks and to hunting and fishing and just going out canoeing in ways that we hadn't seen in a long time. You certainly saw that, didn't you?
Yes, sir. The amount of people that would come and ask questions, just like you said, that may not have grew up doing it, but got out there and decided to get with someone else that did, and that's a good thing. They showed them the ropes and showed them what to do.
So you've got a lot to say, Grace, over in your work. What if you were just riding in an elevator with someone a couple of floors? How do you describe what you do?
Oh, every day is different. Every day is different. And every day I come to work, I don't call it coming to work. It's what I enjoy, grew up doing, and giving a little bit back is the way I look at it.
So as a law enforcement manager, you also have a lot of responsibility as it relates to training. And I'm so impressed with the work that you guys do, not only to work through all the candidates to hire the best law enforcement officers that you can hire, but the amount of training they go through, Chris, is truly remarkable.
Yes, sir. And the guys that's doing the training really take it serious and try to give each one of them everything they need to get out here and do the right thing. And we hire people from all walks of life and that may not know something that I grew up knowing, but before we get through with them, we give them all them tools that they need to go out there and help everybody in the state.
Hey, when did you decide that this was going to be your line of work? How old were you?
I was a little older when I started. I started with the agency in 2003, and really? I actually did all kinds of other things before that, but it was kind of in my desire of mine from when I was in high school. I had a guy that graduated with me and told me, he said, that's what you need to go be, is a game warden. And back then I just blew it off, and then finally it happened.
So what kind of work did you do?
Lord, I worked at several different plants. There was a plant in Philadelphia. I've worked for Taylor Machine Works in Louisville. But every experience I had has helped bring me to this point.
In some cases, it's actually good to go get some other experience because you're a little older and wiser, and you know for sure what it is you want to do. So when you joined in 2003, which is now 20 years ago, or maybe a little bit before, or right at 20 years ago, you knew that's what you wanted to do. And so what all have you done since you've been with the department?
Well, I started out working in the field. My first county I worked was Kemper County, and had an opportunity to move back home to Winston, and I did. Finally worked my way up. I worked in SRT. I've helped with honor guard with the department, and then finally got an opportunity to get in the boating field, and I took that, and then had an opportunity to get back into the field as a lieutenant. Did that for a little while, became a captain at the Central Region office, and had the east side of the state, and just took this job about a month ago. So we're gonna see what I can help do.
Well, for you to have this job, we're talking with Major Chris Clark from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. For you to have this job is a real testament to your leadership. And you consider I've had these conversations with many of your compadres on the show. In fact, when we come back on the other side, we'll talk about how things have changed dramatically for a law enforcement officer over the years and why so much training is really necessary. When we come back with our conversation with Major Chris Clark, we'll see you on the other side.
Whistling that sweet soul for him. I said 3 Mississippi to this land called home. I'll breathe Mississippi till I'm dead and gone. Just carry on. I'll carry on. Mississippi.
Leading the conversation on Mississippi's outdoors. It's SuperTalk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors. I have Major Chris Clark with us, and he has tremendous responsibilities in the area of law enforcement. He's a law enforcement manager for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And when we went to break, I mentioned that law enforcement has come a long way. I think one of your officers told me some time back that in the old days, you'd give someone a gun and wish them well, and they would go out and start practicing their craft. It's not that world anymore, though, is it, Chris?
No, sir. Well, the whole world has changed as far as law enforcement as a whole. And we look at it as a department to make these officers as qualified as they can be as far as anybody in the state and give them all the opportunities, get all the training they can get.
Well, what's interesting to me is that oftentimes they'll find themselves out in the middle of nowhere by themselves without any backup, having to deal with someone who may or may not have a gun. Oftentimes they do have a gun. And there's a lot of focus today on the psychology of what they do, how to keep things depressurized, how not to let things escalate. And boy, the stories I hear of how well trained your officers are and how they don't, take a situation and make it worse. They take a situation and depressurize it. But there's a lot of training that goes into that, isn't there?
Yes, sir. You can probably say 95% of everybody we deal with are just enjoying the outdoors, enjoying what they love, and having a good time. You just got to be prepared for that 5% that goes the other direction, and that can happen at any time.
It could happen at any time, and that's why the training is really necessary. You heard what I said about the technology that people have as it relates to boating today, but man, I mean, boats are faster. If you could say faster means more dangerous, certainly it does when you're talking about the water. People do drop their guards, and I'll look at, as I mentioned, the jet skis that I see. Man, oh man, some of those are just flying by, some as fast as 70 miles an hour. You've seen it all. We have to really pay attention to what we're doing when we're on the water these days, don't we?
Yes, sir. What you're saying is by far the most important thing is paying attention, having somebody else watching. You can't see everything that's going on. If you're pulling somebody, you got to have somebody, being a lookout. And that part is probably resulted in more of the accidents than anything. Is both parties have got to be paying attention and do what they can to avoid anything that can happen.
Hey, I've been in boating all my life. I was introduced to boating before I could even walk. So I've been around water and boating my whole life. I have 3 boats. One goes offshore. One is just a fiberglass skiff that we're able to do a lot of our bait catching with, we call it, our crabbing boat. And then I have a bay boat that I can get out to the islands if I want to in that boat, but it's mostly sort of a backwater boat. So over the years, I've seen it all. One of the key things that I like to tell people is that it's not hard to make sure your boat is legal with an fire extinguisher and flares and, of course, life jackets for everyone on the boat, et cetera. But something that people tend to overlook is just doing your annual maintenance on your boat, because boats, man, I tell you, especially when if you're around water, this deterioration is going to take place, making sure you have good batteries and they're charged and that you've done the kind of maintenance on the motor that needs to be done. But this basic things like this, people will put their boat away for a while and then they'll go charge your battery and then they'll go hit the water and not be aware that maybe they've got a water pump issue or whatever. But, you see a lot of issues that just involve people not maintaining their boats properly, don't you?
Yeah, a lot of times people put them up all winter and not really take care of them. And then when they get out in the spring, they just get out there and try to take off. And there's a lot more things that go to it that they need to do.
Yeah, I definitely see that. So when you see some of the unfortunate incidents that you've had the unfortunate opportunity to see, what do you learn from those, and what's some of your primary advice for people?
The biggest thing is there's no one thing that can help every situation. Every situation is different, but going back to those people paying attention, what they're doing, having somebody to look out at what they're doing, and to make sure, you got to think of the stressors that you have when you're on the water. You can have the heat, the bouncing of the water. I mean, people get dehydrated quicker, things they don't think about.
Yeah. Chris, one of the things that hits me, last year I was at Horn Island. We were just for Family Day on the island, and there might have been 500 boats there, and I'm not exaggerating. And of the 500 boats, there might have been a few of them that weren't drinking. The rest were drinking. Now, I'm hoping that captains weren't drinking. But alcohol and boating tend to go hand in hand, unfortunately. And too often people are operating a boat under the influence. And man, the thing about boating, this is what I taught my sons young in their lives, is that oftentimes you do not get a second chance. That when you're dealing with an accident on the water or some event on the water, it can be incredibly unforgiving. Oftentimes you're dealing with issues like that, and it involves alcohol, doesn't it? Yes,
sir. And we understand everybody's out there trying to have a good time. We want them to. But have somebody that can drive. Have you a designated driver, because you got to think most of them are pulling their kids, their friends. They got them in the boat. You need to take that responsibility and do the right thing.
Yeah, there's no doubt. What is Operation Dry Water?
Operation Dry Water is something that they started back in 2009 through the Coast Guard and NASBA to generate a weekend that they concentrated on any kind of BUI, intoxication, where there was alcohol or drugs. And that actually is coming up July 1st through 3rd. So we'll take that weekend and really heighten the awareness of what's going on.
Wow, that's good. So what were your officers be involved with? What's this look like?
Basically, it'd be every body of water, this big bodies of water, everybody's working. And they'll make bigger details, and there'll be a lot of compliance checks, just trying to make sure everybody is doing the right thing, and having that driver, educating people, giving them the opportunity to ask questions. I mean, they see more officers. I mean, it's just a very heightened weekend.
Well, there couldn't be a better weekend to do it, because 4th of July weekend is, boy, it's a big boating day. In fact, is there a bigger boating day than that weekend?
No, sir. That's probably the biggest one we got. And right now, we on the verge of having more drownings. The boating accidents have picked up. It's the time of the year, and can't stress enough how the people need to pay attention to what's going on and have somebody with them that can drive that boat.
So this boater incident report database that you guys have developed, tell me more about that.
Well, actually, for every boating accident that happens, the operator does a report, a single-page report, and then we go back and do our report, and we turn it into the base for the Coast Guard and do all the information that they need to keep their records.
Wow! And so, how long has that been going on?
Lord, ever since I've been on, we've been working with BARD. It's what we call.
See, data informs, man. There's what gets measured gets done. And when in boating accidents, to be able to, in boating incidents, the opportunity to really collect that data gives you a real sense of where your focus needs to be, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. And it's harder than if you look at a car accident and then you look at the boating accident. That's more fluid. You know, the water's moving, everything's still moving unless it gets dry water, you know, and gets on the bank or something. But it's a lot of work goes to it. And we just had 5 officers that just come back from a training that helped them do that reconstruction work.
Well, listen, I had a long career in media. I was a CEO in the media industry for 16 years, but long ago, I became an advanced paramedic and was in pre-med. I was going to be an emergency room physician. And along the way, I decided to change my major, that really wasn't for me. But becoming an advanced paramedic and working as a paramedic for a period of time has been something that I have taken with me through my life, having that training. And unfortunately, you know, early in my life as a paramedic, I had the opportunity. I wouldn't use opportunity is the wrong word actually, but to be on the scene for a couple of drownings, and there's nothing worse than to be involved in a situation like that. And when you as an officer have the responsibility to sort of say grace over those kind of accident scenes, it is a clarion call to you to make something like Operation Dry Water the best it can be, because it's a chance for your officers to remind people that they should never find themselves in a similar situation. That's always in the back of your mind, isn't it?
Yes, sir. It always hits home. And you get thinking that one thing that you do, you may not realize, but it could be helping. It could be making a change.
It could be, if you can stop one person from drowning, you've done your work. We don't want anyone in this state to drown. So stay focused on the outdoors, when you're in the outdoors, on safety. And listen, Major Chris Clark, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you this morning.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck with Operation Dry Water and your new role. I look forward to talking to you soon on what you're learning. Hey, when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I really enjoyed that conversation with Major Chris Clark. The work that the law enforcement officers are doing across this state is so important. And as he pointed out, there are no other weekends that have more boats involved on the water than 4th of July weekend. And they're going to be out with their operation, checking boats and making sure that you're staying safe. So expect that. Expect to see more officers, and you can help them along by not drinking and boating, and by having all the proper safety equipment, etc. So keep that in mind. Always put that first. Even if you're not expecting to see a law enforcement officer, the reason to do it is to keep the people on your boat safe. Hey, listen, the Foundation for Wildlife Fisheries and Parks, not the Department of Wildlife Fisheries and Parks. The Foundation is a separate 501(c)(3) organization that helps the department in so many different ways, has a new raffle for outdoor enthusiasts in the state, and I mentioned it the last couple of weeks. But the money raised is going to help with conservation efforts in the state, and it's going to give you the chance to win some amazing prizes. For example, a $50,000 Ford voucher. I love this one, a Legends turkey hunt with Cuz Strickland and Preston Pittman, an Argentina dove hunt for 8 hunters, a 10-day guided African safari, and the ultimate outdoors package filled with amazing prizes. You can participate in the raffle easily. Actually, tickets are only like $20 each. 3 tickets are $50, 10 for $100, and 25 tickets are $150. Probably the best way to do it is just go to the foundation website, and there'll be a link there that brings you to the opportunity to purchase your tickets. The ticket purchase deadline is Sunday, July the 30th. And then the drawing is going to be on August the 14th, and winners are going to be announced at the Mississippi Museum of Natural Science. So get your tickets today. I think you'll be glad you did, and you're helping conservation here at the same time. So now let's move over to my friend Dustin Rogers, who's a Northeast region. We're going to talk about Northeast region fishing and brim fishing. He's a fisheries biologist. Anyway, how you doing, Dustin?
I'm doing good. How are you?
It's doing great. I'm doing great. Where are you sitting right now?
I'm at the house.
Good, good. Where is that?
I live in between Pontotoc and Oxford.
Okay, good. Oh, this is a beautiful part of the state. I know you know that.
Yeah, I like it.
Did you grow up there?
No, sir. I grew up in Arkansas.
Really? Yeah. So did you grow up hunting and fishing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So where did you yeah. Go ahead. I was going to say, where did you get your love of the outdoors from?
Yeah, probably just growing up in a really rural part of Arkansas, kind of the southeastern portion of the state. A lot of ag land, and not many big towns around there. So trying to find things to do to keep me out of trouble, and was really fortunate. My grandfather took me hunting and fishing a lot. My dad took me hunting. So
yeah. So duck hunting, being in Arkansas, I bet duck hunting was a big part of your world, huh?
It was. I went through a phase of being pretty crazy about duck hunting up until I guess I graduated college and moved away and just never got back into it. But yeah, it's a lot different now than it was when I was growing up. It's gotten a lot more popular, of course, and there's a lot more folks, out there doing it. So, which is a good thing to see, but it makes it a hassle on public land sometimes.
Yeah, it does. It does. But although the state, when we analyze what's happening at the WMAs across the state as it relates to duck habitat and improving duck hunting for people in the state, we can debate all day long about the flyway and the weather trends and all these things that affect duck hunting. But boy, there's very little debate about the work that the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks is doing in the WMAs as it relates to the duck hunting. So it can be a relatively moderate or even poor year of duck hunting in other places, but on the WMAs, they're going to have ducks. So you guys you're doing a great job. When did you know that biology was something you wanted to get, make a profession?
Oh, wow. I actually started out as an art major in college just because I liked to draw, and I figured out pretty quick that I didn't like to draw as much as they liked for us to draw. To do that all the time, I enjoyed doing it just when I felt like it, and really just kind of fell into it. I took one taxonomy class and just as an elective, and just realized how much was out there that I didn't know, growing up, running through the woods and everything and hunting and fishing. And I just there was so much that I never paid attention to, different plants and trees and just you name it. And I ended up taking every taxonomy class that the university offered and just really loved it. And it's just kind of gone from there.
Hey, I mentioned in the last segment that I was in pre-med. I became a paramedic and was in pre-med, and was going to be an emergency room physician. I was pretty much decided that I was headed to medical school, and along the way, I just decided I'm going to switch my major really pretty last minute, and went on to get a business degree and then a master's in business. But the thing I remember most about the thing I liked most about my pre-med work was the biology, zoology, those classes. I mean, I find that it helps me even today in the work that I do. It helps you certainly understand, how this world works, and so being a fisheries biologist these days, the opportunity to really understand how what you do can make a difference and how to maximize what happens in our rivers and our lakes and our ponds. It's powerfully important to you, that education, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it is. It's and it's something that I get to torture my kids with quite a bit. They probably will not have anything to do with biology or the outdoors. I've pushed it on them so much.
Well, that's good though, because it's all about how learning how the world works. What do you if you were just talking to someone who you didn't know, tell me about what it is you do, and we'll go from there.
So the fisheries biologist in the northeast region of Mississippi. So myself and my coworker, we have a 16 county region here in northeast Mississippi that covers Pickwick Lake, Bay Springs, and the 10-Tom Waterway, all the way down to where it goes, crosses over into Alabama. And then we have our MDWFP water bodies, our state lakes and state park lakes that we manage. And then we also do private pond consulting for private landowners.
There's a lot to say grace over, isn't there?
Yes, sir.
So you have a long to-do list, I bet.
Yeah, we stay pretty busy. We've got also doing a fair amount of work with the invasive carp, kind of monitoring them in Pickwick Lake and seeing how they're migrating. If they're moving into the 10-Tom. We've got receivers set out for them, so we've got our work cut out for us.
Well, listen, my friend Travis Dunn, who I lease some 3 separate farms from up in the Mississippi Delta, the Dunn family, they're just terrific. And he and his wife and his 3 kids went it was an outflow from the Yazoo. And man, I mean, this video, I posted it. It shows the Asian carp jumping into the boat and coming from every direction. I mean, it's a pretty incredible video. And he sent it to me just to say, you're not going to believe what happened today. And he showed it to me. And I posted it at SuperTalk Outdoors. And the last I checked, it had been viewed tens of thousands of times. I mean, that is, first, just a couple of impressions you get from that. One is, holy mackerel. Once you get those things going, they are crazy. And the other, obviously, is how many there are. That's got to give you, as a biologist, significant concern.
Yeah, and there are a lot of folks that are carp specialists that are working on this problem, and we're kind of aiding and assisting them as we can. There's a lot of interagency work going on with the carp. We've done a lot of work with Tennessee and Alabama, and also U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So there's USGS. There's all kinds of folks involved in it. But yeah, it's the reason why we encourage people not to move live bait, because the small carp look very similar to our native shad. So we don't want them transported to different water bodies and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Hey, listen, I always start this show with Mississippi as the capital of the outdoors in America. The reason I can make that claim, and I'll stand toe-to-toe with anyone to make my point, but when you consider the Mississippi Delta and the Mississippi River and the lakes and ponds and rivers all over the state, the duck hunting, the deer hunting, the turkey hunting, the canoeing, the incredible public land, the offshore fishing, the backwater fishing of coastal Mississippi, when you tie it all together, I mean, can there be a better place to enjoy the outdoors than Mississippi? When we get back on the other side, I'm going to get our friend Dustin Rogers, who's a biologist for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, to tell me kind of the state of the affairs of the water bodies he has to say grace over as it relates to fishing. We'll see after this.
Mississippi to this land called home. I'll breathe Mississippi till I'm dead and gone. Just carry on. I'll carry on. Mississippi.
We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the outdoors. So let's talk about it. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I really appreciate you joining us here on the powerful Super Talk Mississippi radio network, or on YouTube or Facebook or your favorite podcast. We really appreciate you joining us. We're talking with Dustin Rogers, who is a fisheries biologist for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And he has a lot to say grace over as it relates to water bodies in northeast Mississippi, not only the public water bodies, but also doing consulting on private land for ponds and lakes of private land. The work they do in that area, incidentally, I've got nothing but great feedback about the work the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks is doing. Essentially, Dustin, you probably can walk up to a lake and pretty quickly know what its challenges are, can't you?
Yeah, a lot of the times you can pick out certain things, and that's part of what we help private owners with too, with their ponds, is seeing different challenges that they're having, and being able to help them with it.
I've seen you guys have tremendous success, man. Whew. I mean, you have taken a pond or lake that's inundated with bass and other species and turn it around and make it a trophy bass lake. It's great when you're able to accomplish that, isn't it? And you've got an owner that's willing to work with you.
Yeah, that's the key thing is we can give all the recommendations we want. If the owner doesn't follow through with them, it doesn't change. You
Yeah.
have to, and I think that's something that's important to note is pond management. It does take some work, and depending on what their goal is, that's the first question that we generally ask is, what do you want out of this pond? Do you want a trophy bass pond, or would you rather have big brim, or just a good balance and a mix of a lot of different things? So,
Well, you heard when I went to break, I was mentioning that I'll come back and get you to tell us when you look at sort of the state of affairs to the water bodies that you have to say grace over, like 10-Time Waterway and Pickwick and Bay Springs and State Park lakes and so on. What's the state of affairs on fishing in the lakes you have responsibility for?
overall, things have been good up here. We've got such a diverse area up here. It's really I've worked in two other regions in the state of Mississippi, and I think this is probably my favorite so far. Um, we're having some challenges with Pickwick Lake, which that's an impoundment of the Tennessee River for anybody that may not know, and it was voted as one of the top 10 bass fishing lakes in the country recently. And it is, as a result of that, it already got a lot of fishing pressure, but it definitely gets a lot of pressure from tournaments and things. And the fishing's been kind of tough up there this year, but we keep both creel. We just finished up our creel surveys there, which we do over a 3-month period in the spring. And we keep creel data and electrofishing data, our population sampling year after year. And so we can see trends as we go along. And Pickwick right now, from our data, is in a little bit of a slump. But every time when I look back historically through the data, it comes back pretty well. So they're for the anglers that are nervous about Pickwick, just hang in there. Both Mississippi Department of Wildlife and Tennessee Wildlife Resources has stocked bass in it this year, so hopefully we're going to see an increase in catch rates and things there again.
Hey, you mentioned brim fishing, and growing up, I can, whether it be in the bayou in Bayou here in Gulfport, I'm actually in Biloxi, but in Gulfport where I was raised, or whether it's places like Paul B. Johnson State Park with a cane pole. Fishing for brim and taking a kid fishing, they kind of come hand in glove, don't they?
Yeah, to me, I kind of relate it to like small game hunting, for getting kids started into hunting, brim fishing. I mean, especially, if you have a private pond that you're fortunate enough to be able to fish in, there's almost always excellent brim fishing in those. And it doesn't require any expensive tackle or anything to get started. Like you said, just a cane pole and a small hook and a bobber, and you're pretty well ready to go. Get you some crickets and you're set. I started my kids out brim fishing and had a lot of fun with it. I think it's a great thing for parents to do.
I call brimfish sort of the magnet of the outdoors, because you can hook them young, which usually you do. It's almost hard to fail if you're on a place where there are brim, and you have the right bait. It's hard to fail, and man, it can be even as an adult today, taking a kid, it's just so much fun.
It is. Yeah, it really is. I had a unique experience of taking, I think I had 5 little girls fishing at one time, and I couldn't keep crickets on hooks fast enough.
That sounds like so much fun. Hey, listen, we're out of time for the day, Dustin, but I've really enjoyed visiting. You're a good guy. I appreciate all the work that you're doing for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Anyway, this is Dustin Rogers. He's a fisheries biologist, and it's been a pleasure. As we started the first part of the show, and we'll end it today, stay safe when you're in the outdoors. Always put safety first. God bless you, and we'll see you next week.
Mississippi.